been built in Ethiopia. It's one of the largest dams in the world, the largest dam in Africa, but it's one of the largest dams anywhere in the world. It was financed by the United States, and it basically blocks the Nile River. You know, when I think of Egypt, I think about the Nile more than any other place, in all fairness, but it goes through Ethiopia. And a dam was built, a very big one, very, very big one, massive.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Imagine this huge wall of concrete, the biggest in Africa, sitting right on the Nile River. It's January 2026, and this thing, it's not just about engineering anymore. It's become this, geopolitical flashpoint.
It's a fascinating situation.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD. And for this deep dive, we're looking at everything from technical reports to the transcripts from Davos.
Seeing the World Economic Forum just this month.
Exactly. And our mission today is really to figure out why a dam that is, for all intents and purposes, finished is still causing such a huge diplomatic storm.
And the timing is key here, isn't it? Donald Trump is back in office, and the rhetoric is really ramping up again.
It is. But before we get to Davos, we have to look at the history. This is really a hangover from a much, much older conflict.
A colonial hangover, you could say.
Absolutely. You have two totally opposing views. On one side, Ethiopia says, look, this is our path out of poverty. It's about electricity.
And those old treaties from 1929, 1959.
They argue they're obsolete. I mean, Ethiopia wasn't even at the table when the British Empire drew those up.
Right. But then you have Egypt and Sudan on the other side. And for them, the Nile is, well, it's everything. Any change upstream feels like an existential threat.
And this is where the U.S., and specifically the Trump administration, comes in. Even in his first term, they weren't exactly a neutral party.
No, far from it. I remember in 2020, they froze, over $100 million in aid to Ethiopia?
Over $130 million, yeah. Because Ethiopia wouldn't sign a deal that was basically drafted in Washington. And then there was that phone call.
Oh, that infamous call in October 2020. I have the quote right here. He suggested Egypt might blow up the dam.
He said they'll end up blowing up the dam. And I said it, and I say it loud and clear.
Which, ironically, probably just hardened Ethiopia's position. But the real dispute, the jargony part, was about the legal stuff.
The binding agreement versus the guidelines and rules.
So a binding agreement is like a rigid contract. It says you must release X amount of water no matter what.
Right. Or else there are legal consequences.
Right.
Whereas guidelines are more like an operating manual.
It's Ethiopia saying, here's how we'll run it, but we keep the keys.
That's it. Control versus cooperation. That's the heart of the deadlock. Okay, so now, fast forward to today, January 2026. Davos.
I come back and it's become a very dangerous issue, the dam, and I'll see if I can get that back on track. We were all set to make a deal. We're going to do a joint venture of sorts, and it would have been good. I think it would have been good for both.
Trump is back, and he sits down with Egyptian President al-Sisi. The headlines just exploded.
It feels like a replay, doesn't it? He's calling the dam very dangerous. He's telling al-Sisi that Egypt has lost access to water it had for millions of years.
He even wrote a letter, something about how no country should control the Nile alone.
Yeah, the rhetoric is intense, but our analysis suggests this is probably more strategic now. Egypt is using this alliance to apply pressure.
Because they know the dam isn't going anywhere.
It's a done deal. So now it's about maybe compensation or trying to limit future projects upstream.
Which brings us to the biggest twist here, right? The reality on the ground. It's what they call a fait accompli.
It really is. While the politicians are arguing, the engineers finish the job. As of September 2025, the dam is fully built. The reservoir has been filled 5 times.
The race is over.
Physically, yes. And this is the most important technical point that I think gets lost in all the noise.
But the paradox.
The paradox. It's a hydroelectric dam. Its purpose is to generate electricity.
It's a battery, not a swimming pool.
Perfect way to put it. To make the turbine spin and generate that power, Ethiopia must release water. They can't just hoard it.
If they turn off the tap, their own lights go out in Addis Ababa.
Precisely. So that core fear doesn't really align with the physics of the project. In fact, there are huge ignored benefits for the downstream countries.
Like for Sudan, the dam regulates the river's flow.
It stops the devastating seasonal floods they used to get, and it cuts down on the silt and sediment that flows downstream by 86%.
That is a massive number. That saves their own dams and canals from getting clogged.
Yeah.
It must save them a fortune.
It does. But politically, that's a very difficult thing for them to admit out loud. So you get this standoff.
It's politics versus physics.
The engineering reality is that the water is flowing, the power is being generated. But the diplomatic reality is stuck on legal wording from a bygone era.
Ethiopia is already moving on, trying to sell power to its neighbors while everyone else is still fighting over paper treaties.
That's the synthesis. We've moved from a period of negotiation to one of pure operation. The concrete is dry.
So that brings us to the final thought for you, the listener. We focus so much on the handshakes and the treaties. But here, the facts on the ground, the concrete and steel, simply moved faster than the ink.
So you have to ask the question, now that the dam is finished and the water has to flow downstream to keep the lights on, is this demand for a binding agreement really about water security anymore? Or is it all just political theater?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.